The emperor who almost conquered Europe. Imagine a world where one man's ambition reshaped an entire continent, where the French language became the tongue of kings, and where Europe united under a single crown. For over a decade, one man came closer to achieving this than anyone before or since. His name was Napoleon Bonaparte. From a poor Corsican family, he rose to become Emperor of France, conquering kingdoms, toppling dynasties, and rewriting the map of Europe. But on June 18th, 1815, on a muddy battlefield in Belgium, everything came crashing down. The Battle of Waterloo ended Napoleon's dream and changed history forever. Yet, what if that rainy day had gone differently? What if Napoleon had won at Waterloo? What if the French Empire had endured and dominated Europe for generations? This is the story of the greatest military genius in history and the alternate world that could have been. Let's explore how Napoleon rose, how he fell, and how our modern world would be unrecognizable if he had triumphed. The rise of a legend from Corsican nobody to Emperor of France. Napoleon Bonaparte was born on August 15, 1769 in Ajaccio, Corsica, a small island that had only recently become part of France. His family was minor nobility, but they were far from wealthy. Young Napoleon was ambitious, brilliant, and hungry for greatness. He attended military school in France, where he excelled in mathematics, artillery, and strategy, while other students mocked his thick Corsican accent. Napoleon buried himself in books, studying the great conquerors, Alexander, Caesar, and Hannibal. He dreamed of glory, and he would achieve it beyond anyone's wildest imagination. Napoleon's chance came during the chaos of the French Revolution in 1789. France exploded in revolution. King Louis XVI was executed, the monarchy was abolished, and France descended into violence and political turmoil. The revolutionary government, the Directory, was weak and corrupt foreign powers. Austria, Prussia, and Britain saw France's weakness as an opportunity and declared war in 1796. At just 26 years old, Napoleon was given command of the French army in Italy. No one expected much from this young Corsican officer, but Napoleon stunned the world. He defeated Austrian armies that vastly outnumbered his own. Using speed, surprise, and brilliant tactics, he marched through Italy, conquering cities and forcing Austria to sue for peace. Napoleon returned to France a hero. His next campaign was even more audacious. In 1798, he led an expedition to Egypt, aiming to cut off British trade routes to India. The military campaign ultimately failed, but Napoleon's propaganda machine turned it into a legend. He returned to France in 1799 as the nation was in crisis. The Directory was collapsing, the economy was in ruins, and enemies surrounded France on November 9, 1799. Napoleon staged a coup d'etat, seizing power and declaring himself first consul of France. Within 5 years, he crowned himself emperor. Napoleon I, the little Corsican, had become the most powerful man in Europe. The Napoleonic Wars. Conquest and empire. As Emperor Napoleon embarked on a series of wars that would reshape Europe. The Napoleonic Wars, lasting from 1803 to 1815, saw France fight nearly every major European power. At one point or another, Napoleon's genius lay in his ability to move his armies faster than his enemies expected. He won battles through aggressive attacks, breaking enemy lines and exploiting weaknesses with ruthless efficiency. In 1805, at the Battle of Austerlitz, Napoleon faced a combined Russian and Austrian army larger than his own. He lured them into a trap and destroyed them. It was his greatest victory, cementing his reputation as a military genius by 1810. Napoleon controlled most of Europe directly or through puppet rulers. France annexed Belgium, the Netherlands, parts of Germany, and northern Italy. Napoleon's brothers and relatives ruled Spain, Naples, and other kingdoms. The French Empire stretched from the Atlantic to the borders of Russia. Napoleon implemented sweeping reforms. He created the Napoleonic Code, a legal system that replaced feudal laws with principles of equality, meritocracy, and civil rights. This code influenced legal systems across Europe and Latin America, still used in modified forms today. Napoleon modernized administration, education, and infrastructure. He built roads, bridges, and canals. He established the Bank of France, stabilizing the economy. He promoted talented individuals, regardless of birth, creating a society based on merit. But Napoleon's ambitions were his undoing. In 1812, he made a catastrophic mistake. He invaded Russia, the beginning of the end. The Russian disaster. Napoleon invaded Russia in June 1812 with the largest army Europe had ever seen. Over 600,000 soldiers from France and its allied states marched east. Napoleon expected a quick victory, forcing Tsar Alexander I to negotiate. But the Russians refused to fight a decisive battle. They retreated deeper into their vast territory, burning crops and supplies as they went. Scorched earth tactics left the French army hungry and exhausted. In September, Napoleon captured Moscow but found the city abandoned and set ablaze. There was no surrender, no negotiation. As winter approached, Napoleon was forced to retreat. The Russian winter of 1812 was brutal. Temperatures plummeted to -30 degrees Celsius. The Grande Armée starved, froze, and was harassed by Russian forces. Of the 600,000 men who entered Russia, fewer than 100,000 returned. It was one of the greatest military disasters in history. Napoleon's enemies, sensing weakness, formed the Sixth Coalition. Britain, Russia, Prussia, Austria, Sweden, and others united against France in 1813 at the Battle of Leipzig. The coalition defeated Napoleon's weakened army. Napoleon abdicated in April 1814 and was exiled to the island of Elba, off the coast of Italy. The Bourbon monarchy was restored in France under King Louis XVIII. It seemed the Napoleonic era was over, but Napoleon wasn't finished. The 100 Days, Napoleon's return in March 1815, Napoleon escaped from Elba and landed in southern France. He marched toward Paris with a small group of followers. King Louis XVIII sent the army to arrest him. But when the soldiers saw Napoleon, they cheered and joined him without firing a shot. Napoleon reclaimed Paris on March 20th, 1815. King Louis fled, and Napoleon was emperor. Once again, this period, known as the 100 Days, sent shockwaves across Europe. The coalition powers immediately declared Napoleon an outlaw and mobilized their armies. Britain, Austria, Russia, and Prussia vowed to destroy him once and for all. Napoleon knew he had to act fast. He couldn't wait for the full coalition armies to assemble. He decided to strike first, attacking the British and Prussian forces in Belgium before they could unite. If he could defeat them quickly, he might force a favorable peace on June 16th. 1815, Napoleon fought the Prussians at the Battle of Ligny and forced them to retreat. 2 days later, he faced the British and their allies, commanded by the Duke of Wellington, at a small village called Waterloo. The Battle of Waterloo, the end of an era, June 18th, 1815. The fate of Europe would be decided on a muddy battlefield near Waterloo, Belgium. Napoleon commanded about 72,000 men. Wellington had around 68,000 with Prussian reinforcements under Marshal Blücher. Expected to arrive, the battle began late in the morning. Heavy rain the night before had turned the ground into mud. Delaying Napoleon's artillery, Napoleon's plan was straightforward: smash through Wellington's center with overwhelming force. Wellington positioned his troops on a ridge, using the terrain to protect them from French artillery for hours. The French attacked again and again. Wellington's lines held. But barely. The fighting was brutal. Thousands died in desperate cavalry charges and infantry assaults. Then, in the late afternoon, the Prussians arrived. Blücher's army, 50,000 strong, began attacking Napoleon's right flank. Napoleon was now fighting on two fronts. He sent his elite Imperial Guard, his best troops, in a final desperate attack on Wellington's center. Wellington's forces held firm. The Imperial Guard, for the first time in their history, were forced to retreat. Cries of "La Garde recule!" The Guard retreat spread panic through the French army. The French army collapsed. Wellington and Blucher pursued the broken French forces. Napoleon fled the battlefield. His army was destroyed days later. On June 22nd, Napoleon abdicated again. This time, there would be no return. He was exiled to St. Helena, a remote island in the South Atlantic, where he died in 1821. At age 51, the Napoleonic era was over. The aftermath. A new Europe, the defeat at Waterloo, reshaped Europe. The Congress of Vienna redrew the map of the continent, restoring monarchies and creating a balance of power designed to prevent any single nation from dominating. Again, France was reduced to its pre-revolutionary borders. The Bourbon monarchy was permanently restored. Napoleon's legal and administrative reforms survived in France and influenced many nations. But his dream of a united Europe under French leadership was dead. Britain emerged as the dominant global power. The 19th century became the British century, with the largest empire the world had ever seen. The Industrial Revolution began in Britain, spreading across Europe and transforming human civilization. The ideas of nationalism that Napoleon had spread, both intentionally and unintentionally, began to reshape Europe in the decades after Waterloo. Italy and Germany unified into nation-states. The old empires, Austria-Hungary, Ottoman, and Russian, slowly declined. Napoleon's legacy was complex. He spread revolutionary ideas of equality and meritocracy. But he was also a dictator who waged endless wars that killed millions. He ended feudalism in much of Europe, but replaced it with authoritarian rule. He remains one of history's most controversial figures, a military genius and a tyrant, a liberator and a conqueror. But what if Waterloo had ended differently? What if Napoleon had defeated Wellington and Blucher? What if the French Empire had survived and reshaped the world? Waterloo had ended differently. What if Napoleon had defeated Wellington and Blucher? What if the French Empire had survived and reshaped the world? What if Napoleon won at Waterloo? Imagine it's June 18th, 1815, the same muddy battlefield near Waterloo, Belgium. But this time, events unfold differently in this alternate timeline. The Prussian army under Blucher is delayed by just a few more hours, perhaps by miscommunication or difficult terrain. Without Prussian reinforcements, Wellington's army stands alone against Napoleon's full force. Napoleon concentrates his artillery and Imperial Guard on Wellington's weakened center. The British lines, exhausted from hours of fighting, finally break. Wellington is forced to retreat. Napoleon wins a decisive victory, and the course of history changes forever. Napoleon consolidates power in Europe with victory at Waterloo. Napoleon's position transforms overnight. The coalition powers Britain, Austria, Russia, and Prussia are stunned. They had expected an easy victory. Instead, they face a resurgent French Empire. Napoleon doesn't make the same mistakes as before. He knows he can't fight all of Europe simultaneously. Instead, he offers generous peace terms to Austria and Russia. He proposes a Congress similar to Vienna, but one that recognizes French dominance in Western Europe in exchange for peace. Napoleon agrees to limit French expansion eastward. Austria, weakened by years of war and fearing revolution at home, accepts Russia, exhausted from the 1812 campaign and dealing with internal problems, also agrees to him as Prussia, isolated and defeated at Ligny. Is forced to accept French terms, Britain stands alone. Napoleon cannot invade Britain. The Royal Navy is too powerful. But he can strangle British trade. He tightens the continental system, blockading British goods from European ports. Britain's economy begins to suffer by 1818. Britain, weary of war and facing economic crisis, negotiates a peace treaty. Recognizing French hegemony in continental Europe, Napoleon, at 49 years old, is once again the undisputed master of Western Europe, a lasting French Empire reforms. And expansion with peace secured, Napoleon focuses on consolidating his empire. He implements the Napoleonic Code across all French territories and puppet states, creating a unified legal system from Spain to Poland. He standardizes education, establishing schools and universities that teach in French, promoting French culture and language. Napoleon's empire becomes the center of European culture and learning. Paris, not London, becomes the dominant city of the 19th century. Unlike in our timeline, where Britain led the Industrial Revolution in this alternate world. France takes the lead. Napoleon invests heavily in infrastructure, building railroads, canals, and factories. French engineers and inventors pioneer new technologies. Steam power, mechanization, and industrial production transformed the French economy by the 1830s. France is the wealthiest and most industrialized nation in Europe. Napoleon's meritocratic system allows talented individuals, regardless of birth, to rise. This creates a dynamic, innovative society. French becomes the language of science, diplomacy, and culture. Much like English in our world, Napoleon's legal code, which emphasizes equality, civil rights, and secular governance, spreads across Europe and eventually to French colonies around the world. The fate of Britain and the British Empire. In this timeline, Britain does not become the global superpower. It was in our world without dominance in Europe. Britain focuses on its overseas empire, expanding aggressively in India, Africa, and the Pacific. But without the industrial and economic advantages it enjoyed in our timeline. British expansion is slower. French competition limits British influence in key regions. Napoleon establishes French colonies in North Africa, expanding into Algeria, Tunisia, and eventually Egypt. French influence spreads into West Africa and Indochina. The scramble for Africa in the late 19th century sees France, not Britain, as the dominant colonial power. The British Empire still exists, but it's a secondary power. Compared to the French Empire, English remains important, but French becomes the lingua franca of international diplomacy and trade. The United States, still independent, maintains trade relations with both France and Britain. But French influence in the Americas grows stronger. The unification of Europe under French leadership, one of the most significant consequences of Napoleon's survival, is the political unification of Europe in our timeline. Europe remained divided into competing nation-states, leading to rivalries and eventually world wars. But in this alternate world, Napoleon creates a European confederation modeled loosely on the Holy Roman Empire, but with France at its center by 1830. This confederation includes France, the Low Countries, the German states, Italy, and in parts of Eastern Europe. Each region has autonomy, but foreign policy, military affairs, and trade are controlled by Paris. This system prevents the intense nationalism and rivalries that plagued Europe in our timeline. There is no Franco-Prussian War, no German unification under Prussia, no Austro-Hungarian tensions instead. Europe is a single political and economic bloc under French leadership. Napoleon's successors, his son Napoleon II, or other capable leaders continue this system. The European Confederation becomes the world's dominant superpower. The impact on nationalism and revolution, Napoleon's victory, and the continuation of the French Empire have complex effects on nationalism and political movements. On one hand, Napoleon spreads revolutionary ideas of equality, civil rights, and meritocracy. Serfdom is abolished across Europe. Education becomes more widespread and social mobility increases. On the other hand, Napoleon is still an autocrat. He doesn't establish democracies here. He rules through a centralized bureaucracy and military power. Liberal and nationalist movements still emerge, but they're suppressed more effectively than in our timeline. The revolutions of 1848, which swept across Europe in our world, are smaller and less successful. In this alternate timeline, without the fragmentation of Europe into competing nation-states, Nationalist movements in Italy, Germany, and Eastern Europe struggle to gain traction. The concept of the nation-state as we know it develops more slowly or differently technology and the Industrial Revolution under French leadership with France. As the dominant power, the Industrial Revolution takes a different path. French engineers and scientists lead technological innovation. Napoleon's government invests in research and development, seeing technology as key to military and economic power. Railroads spread across the European Confederation earlier than in our timeline, connecting Paris to Berlin, Vienna and Rome. Steam power, mechanized production, and later electrical technologies developed rapidly by the 1870s. France has the most advanced industrial economy in the world. Coal and steel production rival or surpass Britain's French inventors pioneer automobiles. Aviation and telecommunications, the Eiffel Tower built for the 1889 Paris World's Fair, still happens. But in this timeline, it symbolizes French, not just French, but European technological dominance, the fate of the United States and the Americas. The United States still exists and grows in this timeline. But its relationship with Europe is different without British dominance in global trade. The US is more influenced by French culture and politics. French investment in American railroads, industry and infrastructure is significant by the mid-19th century. French is widely spoken in American elite circles and taught in schools. The Louisiana Purchase still happened in 1803, but with Napoleon's survival and a stronger France. French cultural influence in Louisiana and the Midwest is greater. New Orleans becomes a major French-speaking city. The American Civil War still occurs. Slavery remains a divisive issue. But French pressure and economic influence play a role in its resolution. France, with its revolutionary ideals and opposition to slavery, in its own empire pushes the US toward abolition earlier. Latin America also develops differently in our timeline. Many Latin American countries gained independence during the Napoleonic Wars, while Spain was weakened in this alternate timeline. Spain is a French puppet state. French influence in Latin America is stronger. French becomes a common language in the region, alongside Spanish and Portuguese religion and the Catholic Church. Napoleon's relationship with the Catholic Church was complex. He restored the Church in France, but kept it under state control. In this alternate timeline, with Napoleon's survival and the spread of his secular legal code, the influence of the Catholic Church declines across Europe. The Pope remains in Rome, but his political power is limited. The Papal States are absorbed into the Italian region of the European Confederation. Secularization accelerates. Religious education is replaced by state-run schools. Church property is nationalized, and civil marriage becomes standard. This doesn't mean religion disappears, but its role in public life diminishes. Christianity remains culturally important, but Europe becomes more secular earlier than in our timeline. By the 20th century, Europe in this timeline is more like the secular societies of Western Europe today. But a century earlier, the 20th century, a world without world wars, one of the most profound consequences of Napoleon's victory is the potential prevention of the world wars that devastated the 20th century in our timeline. World War I erupted due to nationalism, militarism, and the complex alliances between European nation-states. But in this alternate timeline, Europe is united under the European Confederation. There are no rival alliances, no arms races between France and Germany, because they're part of the same political system. This doesn't mean there's no conflict. Regional tensions, ethnic differences, and power struggles still exist. But large-scale wars between European powers are less likely. The European Confederation might face challenges, rebellions, independence movements, and border conflicts with Russia or the Ottoman Empire. But a catastrophic continental war, like World War I, is avoided without World War I. There's no Russian Revolution, no rise of communism in the way we know it, no Treaty of Versailles, and most importantly, no conditions that led to World War II and the Holocaust. The 20th century in this timeline is less violent, less traumatic. Millions of lives are saved that were lost in our timeline's wars. Would it be better or worse? The question of freedom. This is where the alternate timeline becomes morally complex. On one hand, a united Europe under French leadership prevents the horrors of World War I and II. Technological and scientific progress might accelerate. Millions of lives are saved from war, famine, and genocide. On the other hand, Napoleon's system is authoritarian. It's based on meritocracy, not democracy. The European Confederation is ruled from Paris with limited local autonomy. Political freedoms are restricted. Free speech, press, and assembly are controlled. Dissent is suppressed. Liberal democratic movements that emerged in our timeline are weaker. In this alternate world, the question becomes, is stability and prosperity under autocratic rule better than freedom with conflict? There's no easy answer. Napoleon's system brings order, progress, and peace, but at the cost of individual liberty. The tension between these values defines this alternate timeline, the modern world under Napoleonic hegemony. If Napoleon had won at Waterloo and the French Empire endured, what would today's world look like politically? Europe might be a single federal state similar to the European Union, but established over a century earlier. With deeper political integration, the capital would be Paris. French would be the dominant language of Europe, and possibly the world economically. Europe, under this system, might be the wealthiest region on Earth. Earlier industrialization and unified markets could give it advantages. The US, China, and other powers still rise, but Europe retains more influence culturally. French culture, language, and values dominate globally. Much like American culture does in our timeline, French films, music, and literature are the global standard. Technologically, it's hard to predict. Unified European resources could accelerate innovation, leading to earlier space exploration, computing, and biotechnology. Alternatively, the lack of competition between nations might slow progress militarily. The European Confederation might have the world's most powerful military, but with no European rivals, it focuses on colonial expansion and managing internal stability. Conclusion: a battle that changed everything. If Napoleon had won at Waterloo, the entire trajectory of the 19th century and 20th centuries would have changed. Europe might have united under French leadership a century before the European Union. Britain's dominance would have been curtailed. The world wars that killed millions might never have happened, and the modern world would be shaped by French culture, law, and language. Napoleon's victory would have created a radically different timeline, one where autocracy and progress coexist, where Europe is united but freedom is limited, where technology advances but at the cost of individual rights. We can't know if this world would be better or worse than ours. It would simply be different, unrecognizably so. But history took a different path on that rainy day in June 1815. Napoleon lost, Wellington and Blücher won, and the French Empire fell. One battle, one day, one decision, and the world we know today was born. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more alternate history scenarios, exploring the moments that could have changed everything.